During the 1970s, the English-Australian musical duo of Alan Tarney and Trevor Spencer emerged as an industry force, and in 1978 they released the second of their three albums as a recording unit, Three's a Crowd, and from it, the original version of the much covered track, It's Really You. Okay, half step right there, just guided by a little bit of kind of like smooth processed bass. It sounds like kind of faint like wah wah guitar tones and a bit of twang right there amid the piano and some kind of like backwards cymbals and oh, kind of like some synth strings right there. An overall kind of like hazy, almost kind of like liquidy feel. Some like synthesizer strings mixed with a little bit of actual strings, perhaps. I'm going to check on that. Okay, I had always felt that this had actual strings on it, but now that I listen closer, that no 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 no, it seems like there's like two like of those polyphonic synthesizers being kind of like layered onto one another. One doing like a no 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 no, and the other doing that no 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 no. It just kind of has this overall like flowery kind of like string laden vibe, kind of like evocative of oh well like earlier decade like orchestrated balladry like out of the Philly school or heck from like say like you know the Carpenters or something.
Did you ever have a plan, a dream, and think it would be right for you? For a moment in your life, believe.
I'm trying to pinpoint what is creating just the sonic fullness of it. It's like I guess really it's Trevor Spencer and just the really full production, full sustain of the like kick drums or whatever.
Heaven would decide for you. And that a feeling deep inside will guide you to a love you treasure. It's you and I forever.
Okay, now Alan Tarney is singing here. I'm thinking that the reason that they didn't really go too far as a recording unit is because maybe when their own versions were compared to other people's interpretations, the other vocalists tended to be come across stronger, more compelling. I really like this version of this song because of its arrangement is so unique. It's like so far you've seen me having a like just kind of like baffled. It's like how do I really isolate the active ingredients of this or really characterize it? It because it's kind of like one of a kind arrangement wise. Some good harmonies right there, and let's see who is. I know that like Alan Tarney plays synthesizer, guitar, keyboards, vocals, multi instrumentalist there. Trevor Spencer handles drums and electronic drums. Early use of synth drums, I guess. And the other, It's produced. Interestingly enough, this album is not produced by Alan Tarney. Although Alan Tarney would go on to produce like a bunch of albums for others, like Cliff Richard, Barbara Dixon, who would do a cover of the song more of in an up tempo synth pop vein. In 1980, Leo Sayer and Charlie Dorr. Yeah, he would work with all four of those artists in the next between 1979, 80 thereabouts. I think he may have produced an album for Dan Seals. Um, and I know Dan Seals covered one of the songs in 1980s. And later in the mid 80s, he would produce Aha and comeback album for David Cassidy. Oh, and he worked with Squeeze on the song "Annie, Get Your Gun." That's kind of a story in its own right. Well, actually, they all are stories in its own right. But let's just say he's better working with vocalists than he is with working with bands, because when it comes to working with bands, he kind of takes away their autonomy. But we've got a lot of performers with who are just not really specified in the role they play. Yeah. But yeah, okay. Where was I going? This album is produced by David Kirschenbaum, who a year later would produce the first two Joe Jackson albums. Yeah. So it kind of is kind of the perfect middle, this album, between the slickness of Alan Tarney, that he would be perfecting over the next few years, even more so, and the kind of more raw edge that I think Kirschenbaum favored. Yeah, particularly when you compare this, particularly when you contrast what Alan Tarney was doing circa 1979-80 with like the first couple of albums by Joe Jackson.
If there's something on your mind, I need, and you feel you wanna shake it.
Oh, I love those like placed bass notes, just everything about the smoothness and the kind of lucidness almost of this. I was just thinking, Barbara Dixon gives kind of more of a seductive air to the vocals on this one. Like,
Go and fall, leave it, you don't have to chase it.
I should catch up with the lyrics here. Did you ever have a plan, a dream, think it would be right for you? For a moment in your life, believe heaven would decide for you. That a feeling deep inside will guide you to a love you'll treasure. It's you and I forever. Keep on believing it's really you, it's really me. We're all the things we ever wanted. Okay, so basically I guess the message here is follow your heart. Don't, like, when it comes to love, when it comes to something that you feel in your heart, don't let your rational mind and pragmatism or past fears or fears based on past experiences or past disappointments get in the way, or prevent you from enjoying the moment.
There's a new world all around you that's so good, darling, and it's made for you. There's nothing more you need to do. Keep on believing it's really you, it's really me. We're all the things we ever wanted to be.
Okay, that chorus right there is an F, but it's making some adjustments to F.
Time is right, you're here tonight, so hold my hand and know that you.
I heard like a descent with an F, like it's like dum da dum da dum da dum, while the bass note is an F. Yeah, he gives it his best. The emotion. I guess you could say he's pretty understated, but there are moments when it rises up.
It's really you, it's me. It's really you, it's me.
I love the layers of that part right there. Yeah. I'm wondering who is doing backup vocals on this. Yeah, they're really, at least the one that I have up here giving me few credits. So it seems like the duo prefer to take. Let's say of the other people listed. Let's see: Colin Cooper, Derek Holt, Joe Poland, John Cuffley, John Perry. Probably not the John. Singer with Grapefruit, Antonio Rivers and the Castaways. Has worked with Cliff Richard, Kiki D, Elton John, Roger Daltrey, Leo. Well, he's worked with a lot of it. Yeah, I've seen that name around. He's not the guy who the other very ubiquitous John Perry of the period. Linton Naif, Peter Haycock, Peter Thalul, Stu Claver, Tony, studio musicians from around the time, kind of. That boom. It's kind of almost like a splashing sound that sounds off each like new the start of the whole theme. I hadn't noticed that before. That fits perfectly right in there amid that like rising like string synth. No 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 no. I love the contrast between those two, the counterpoint between those two synthesizers. Yeah, but I never noticed though those kind of like vocal ad libs at the end. And there was something just about and listening to it this closely kind of gives me a newfound appreciation of Trevor Spencer and his role, because a lot of the credit, let's face it, often goes to Alan Tarney when those two are taken into account, and Trevor's kind of thought of the sidekick, but his drumming just really. I think it seemed to be filling out a lot of this track more than anything, and just pacing things and giving things that kind of like heavy kind of just kind of lurch it had throughout the verses, particularly when the synthesizers were more subdued when yeah and anyway, yeah, the Tarney Spencer band, they put out an album on Bradley's that had a hit in the UK, despite the album not really being distributed much, being widely unavailable until it was reissued in the 2000s. And then started writing, and Alan Tarney started writing more songs for Cliff Richard, starting on, he had been playing in the backup band, and he had been kind of like on the been a peripheral member of the Shadows from like the early 70s onward, but in on the album Every Face Tells a Story, which came out in 1977, he had a couple of songs on there. I think like Spider-Man was one of them. This great track, Give Me Your Love Your Way, yeah, which had been a record on that first Tarney Spencer album, and then did a superior version with Cliff Richard, and then Greenlight had a couple of songs. Had at least, well, he did the title track, and then he wrote "We Don't Talk Anymore," and then based on the strength of that, was given the main writer producer role on the 1980 album "I'm No Hero," one of the best albums of that year, bar none. Yeah, and the peak of both their careers, Cliff and Tarney. And meanwhile, he on this album, I have to say, one track where I think that his vocals shine above all else are on the side one closer, Maybe I'm Right, which, despite the fact that I tend to like other people's versions of Tarney's tracks. No, here's the irony here. It's the one track on Three's a Crowd that Alan Tarney didn't write or didn't have a hand in writing. It was written by one Robert Watchell, but it's also one of the few tracks in which I actually prefer Tarney's version over the other version that I've heard. Because in a lot of instances, I prefer the Cliff or Dixon versions of songs that were recorded by both in both settings. But I like the Tarney Spencer version of Maybe I'm Right better than the one that Linda Ronstadt cut on, I think, Simple Dreams. Yeah, I think it had a lot to do with the arrangement, the key center, and the modulation at the end. But yeah, it really says something. He really, so it was very much a justified cover. To throw that in as a cover, on a very songwriterly album, when considering that Tarney had an arrangement for it that really brought out the power in that number, much more so than the people than Ronstadt's team. Yeah, yeah. They throw it into they basically base it in G and then throw it, and then actually they don't, they modulate to like a high F or something, F being two steps, being a step lower than G. But yeah, toward the end when it goes maybe I'm, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Tarney Spencer Band, yeah, excellent, well composed, harmony laden pop rock. Three albums between 1976 and 1979, and then a very decorated career as writer, arranger, producers for other artists on some stellar recordings by Cliff Richard, Leo Sayer, Barbara Dixon, and Charlie Dorr, circa 1979, 1980. Yeah, so a force to be reckoned with from that time frame. Yes. For more Rubies and Sapphires from the three Tarney Spencer Band albums, see the directory of albums by Australian artists, linked in the description below. Yeah, they technically born in the UK, then I guess raised in Australia, rose to prominence in the Australian industry first in the late 60s before moving back to the UK. It's kind of confusing, but that's the story of a lot of Aussie artists from the time period. Yeah. Like and subscribe, follow me on social media, and share the video, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the track we just heard, the layers, the nuances, the arrangements, the fullness of it all, the lyrics, if you have any observations, commentary, or your views on just all the musical interactions that I ended up discussing, since Alan Tarney is a pretty loaded topic. He touched a lot of things during the time period. It's hard not to comment on it all without, when his name is brought up. Yeah. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most air travel maximalist, signing off.